Me from the dark, from down there. I like the looking down thing. It's a little bit fun. But anyway, subjects. Yeah, basically just want to talk a little bit about the unintelligent design concept. Kind of funny, I just happened on that word accidentally. I don't know if somebody else has used it or not. But that's basically, if you're an atheist, that's the game, right? I mean, unless you're going to be kind of a fake atheist and just say, no, I reject the standard religions, but I'll just make up a new one. Or, you know, I'll accept astrology or some other kind of bullshit. You're stuck with unintelligent design. A universe made up of matter. And the first cell, again, I stress this over and over, but it's sort of significant. We can't really discern that it had any other ambition but consumption and reproduction. And that's it. That's the only forces, biological or whatever, socio-biological forces that make up what we call natural selection. That's really the game. You got to be, your DNA has to consume and reproduce more effectively than the rest of the stuff you're living with. You have to find niches better than they find niches. You know, I won't go through all the little subtleties of evolution, but I guess someone should, because I will say, you know, I noticed this Saturday night when I was talking with Matt, he was sort of arguing that there was some significance to the fact that, you know, human beings you know, are on a certain level of the biosphere or certain influences, and you know, well, the real argument was, you know, why aren't we all just microbes? Why didn't evolution just stop with the microbe? And that's, I mean, Matt's just way too intelligent to have that, to make that kind of argument. So that's where his aggressive desire to make this, to rationalize this philosophy of his, becomes quite apparent. I mean, there's no way he can't understand that evolution has nothing to do with replacement philosophy or something. It's not about organisms being obliged to change. It's the fact that it's usually to their advantage to change, because the environment is constantly changing itself, and they can take advantage of that. You know, you're going to need to have different tools if you're living in a world that's 10 degrees warmer than a world that's 10 degrees colder. In a world that's got volcanoes and a world that doesn't. You know, just the weather alone, from season to season and through the decades, changes the world we live in. And an organism that's capable of maximizing their capacity to exploit those changes is going to be more successful, and that's just a given. But the rudimentary basic core, there's still just you know, a mouth and an anus and reproductive organs. That's the game. So all the rest of it is just enhancements to make the game play out, to make organisms capable of playing the game. But that's it. So anyway, back to the, I mean, well, whatever, I'll save it for another video. So the point is this unintelligent design thing has a consequence, and that is that there's no conceived, no rationally derived determination that this is a good idea. Like, yes, living things, reproducing organisms, that's what a living thing is. I mean, everybody associates life with consciousness, but look, most life isn't conscious, and so, you know, that becomes a little deceptive. Most life is just a mechanical little machine that's just consuming and reproducing. And some of the life forms have acquired what we're doing, this sentience thing, this, I can feel the world around me. It can hurt me, and it can please me. And that's a really interesting tool And it's really dangerous. It changes kind of the whole game, because now this thing of value has been injected into the system. And I've made this point before, but that's really it. All this life thing would be completely irrelevant if it didn't create feeling organisms. Who could care what the universe looked like, whether it was living, whether it was reproducing or not? We wouldn't really. Its configuration would be completely irrelevant if it wasn't for the fact of this phenomenon of sensation. And that's the whole game here. And there's really, that's it. And so all morality, all ethics, everything has to be focused on that, has to be founded, grounded on that reality. So, but most of the atheists don't talk in those terms. They still value life in and of itself. They still kind of pretend that there's something, even though it's unintelligent design, that somehow the unintelligence knew what it was doing, that there's some sort of purpose in satisfying the objectives of the biology, the DNA molecule, that is programmed to propel itself into the future, and it uses this mechanism of desire to get us to do that. Animals don't survive on purpose. They survive because they're avoiding harm and seeking pleasure, and they've been programmed to be pleased by things likely to lead to their survival or the survival of their kind, and to avoid things that are going to be destructive to their kind and to their DNA molecule. They have no ambition to live 100 years or 1,000,000 years. Living is just what they're doing. They're not judging it because they don't have the understanding, the knowledge to do it. And we do, and most people want to avoid being skeptical enough to look at the question. They'll just accept any totem pole somebody shoves in front of them, any out that exempts them from having to justify their existence. And we sort of have to justify this to some point. It's not free. There's a price paid for our existence. There's lots of suffering in the world, and we have to defend it by saying we're doing something of sufficient merit to justify it. Something more than satisfying desires contrived by nature. I mean, yes, it's fun, and of course it's fun because we've been designed for it to be fun. But it doesn't mean the fun in itself has value enough to justify what the organisms not having fun are enduring. And I guess the real trap here is human psychology again, because we are very easy. It's very easy to dismiss a pain or a misery you had in the past and put it behind you. It might still spook you now and then when you think of it, but it's not a threat, and so it becomes irrelevant to your evaluation of what value tomorrow has, because that's not part of tomorrow's price. And so we have this illusion that tomorrow's much cheaper because we don't penalize it to have to pay for the past. It's just psychology. I mean, that's a hard one for me to argue past because there's no rational argument to undermine when people are being psychological. And that's all psychology. Because if that horror or that nastiness was sitting in front of you, the equation would be very different for a lot of people. They would make different decisions if it was there. If it was there in front of them. And that's the way life is, though, in a whole big picture thing, is that some people are winning, they're not paying too high a price for life, and some people are paying extraordinarily high price enduring lots of suffering. And it's very easy for us to dismiss it when the suffering is happening to somebody else. When somebody else is the schizophrenic, it's really easy just to say, well, that's not so bad. Life is still worth it because I'm not schizophrenic and I'm having a good time, so therefore, on balance, it's okay. And it's really not okay. It's way too expensive, in my opinion, and I will attempt to prove it over time. The only way I can prove it is through argument, because unfortunately the truth isn't written on a rock, and it's something you have to discern from the circumstances. And if we fairly evaluate the circumstances and the unintelligence of our design, I think the conclusion becomes obvious. At least to me. So anyway, until next time, another fun-filled video about how dismal and awful it is. Well, it's really not, but, you know, the game is stupid. The players are okay. It's the game that sucks. That's what you gotta understand.